Dr. Cliff here with the down and dirty, under 3-minute summary of how to deal with emotional vampires, vipers, villains, and vultures. How am I going to do this rather daunting challenge in such a short amount of time? It's good to keep an overview in all this. We'll get to much more detail later. The overview has something to do with authoritarianism and authority in general. Authority might in some ways keep the world functioning, at lower levels anyway, but it also presents a lot of problems. Let's look at this basically from a hypnosis point of view. The old style hypnosis was authoritarian. Why? It worked, in a way, created a lot of havoc in its wake, but it did work. Let's look at some authoritarian types of societies. How come such a small percentage of people stay out of such crazy psychotic ideas? And how come so many go along for the ride? How come research with some very intelligent electrical engineers showed that they could be convinced to give electrocution level voltage to someone that they were experimenting with? How come? I think this comes down to basics in terms of the structure of the human consciousness, which I talk about elsewhere. On the one hand, we have the ego, which is very much aligned with an authority structure and falls into place and is vulnerable to it and enjoys being on the top, but will take orders from the person above them. That's the ego. The time has come to be in touch with something else, and much deeper and freer aspect of the human consciousness, which I call the inner core, which is more into reason and truth, purpose-driven. It's more inside, where the ego is more on the outside of it all. But that's where so many bullies and so on practice their craft. I will get into much more detail on the difference between the inner core and the ego, and sometimes the cooperation between the two. But basically keep in mind that when you fall for the ravings of a bully, you are falling into a hypnotic state, and it's how to stay out of that emotionalized, overly ideologicalized state, and how to get back to reason, how to maintain it, how to stay within the inner core, or to keep it at its major focus in your foundation. Yeah, that's a quick summary.